Hi, I'm Anthony Garcia with Verizon, and today we're going to be taking a look at a feature that's in preview called Webex Teams Calling UCM, Unified Communication Manager. So that should indicate to you that we're using Unified Communication Manager either on-prem or HCS, hopefully Verizon UCAS, and we're taking the telephony portion of Webex Teams and kind of connecting that to Unified Communication Manager for the purpose of audio and video. So I'm not talking about the messaging piece. We're talking about Webex Teams only using your on-prem or HCS UCAS for telephony, PSTN calling. And there's something odd about this because you would think it's going to use it for other, almost everything, but there's this kind of dual registration thing I want to tell you about, and we'll whiteboard that thing. Hey, I'm going to put different sections of this video down below, so if you're not interested in the lecture, or you're just interested in the whiteboarding, or interested in the demos, then just click below on the timeline and it'll take you right there. Now, join me over the whiteboard. We'll whiteboard this thing out and I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Okay, let's take a look at this drawing and get familiar with it real quick. I got the internet on top here. On the right lower, we have our HCS and UCAS. All right, that can either, this is signifying, this box is signifying either on-prem or HCS. Again, hoping Verizon UCAS there. And then we have PSTN connectivity down here. And then we have our MPLS PIP network. And then we have on the left-hand side, we have branch site 1 on top and branch site 2 on the bottom. And we have two users signified by these little laptops and phones. And they have laptops, they're using Webex Teams, and they have desk phones as well because they have Cisco UCM deployed. So they have desk phones and they have numbers with those desk phones. In fact, let's give them some numbers here. Let's say this guy's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this guy's 1, 2, 3, and these are DN numbers. Okay, and these red little circles, those are just routers. Not important there. We have our internet up there. We have Webex Team Collaboration Cloud right here. Okay, that's our Webex Teams multi-tenant from Cisco, right, that we're talking about here. And we're talking about specifically the feature that's called Webex Teams Calling UCM right up there. So let's get started. Now, what does this provide us to do if we use this feature? It provides this little phone. Remember, inside Webex Teams, there is a soft phone in there. There is a SIP soft phone, and that SIP soft phone is now able to register. Let's pick a light green here for registration. That registration of that little soft phone inside there is able to register across the network to CUCM. So CUCM provides SIP trunking and things right here to your whatever PSTN provider you have. So the soft phone, then you can use your CUCM for call control. So the same thing on branch site 2 there. All right, so we understand where we are registering the soft phone. Okay, so that should tell you something. You can dial E164 addresses or numbers. You can dial the PSTN. Okay, now, the question comes up as soon as I saw this feature, does this negate my ability to call other Webex Teams users out in other organizations? In other words, maybe they're not in my Webex Teams org. Let's make an org here just so we know what we're talking about. Okay, let's say our Webex team org is Anson.com. Okay, and that's what these guys are registered to. That's a user1 at Anson.com. And then we have user2 down here at Anson.com as well. So that's our org, that's our site, whatever you want to call it, but we have the ability in Webex Teams to call outside of our organization, right? I can call lin.com or any other company that's running Webex Teams. I can call them. I'm fully federated. I can SIP URI dial them. I can dial them from my contacts as long as they have an email address and that email address is synced up or is the same as their SIP URI. So since my Webex Teams phone portion is connected to my UCM, hey, maybe I don't have B2B calling in UCM. I'm going to dial a SIP URI. Is my UCM going to be able to dial that? That's the cool thing about this. There is this kind of dual registration thing going on. So let's get dark green. That SIP URI, that little phone inside this guy right here in that Webex Teams is also registered, this dark guy. And I'm just going this way to UCAS because I'm trying to get out to the internet. You could have an internet breakout here or whatever. But we're also connected that way. So it's kind of a dual registration thing. So if I dial someone inside my organization, I'm going to use CUCM or UCM. If I dial a PSTN number, I'm going to use this as well. So in org, maybe I'll call it PSTN, check. Everything's cool. And then if I dial someone outside of my org, if I dial a SIP URI, any SIP URI, by the way, that uses standard codecs out there, voice video codecs, I'm going to be able to use this particular registration over here. So that's really cool. And I kind of found this out by dialing around, doing some Wireshark stuff, and it kind of happened upon it because I really didn't think of, hey, I'm connected to UCM. Does my UCM need to have B2B calling? Because I still want to call the people that have Webex Teams out in the world. This is really cool. I'm just going to name it. I think I saw somewhere, or in the old days, we used to do like telepresence units and used to have an H323 kind of way to dial and a SIP way to dial. And we used to call that dual registration. That's what I called it anyway. So let's just call it that, dual reg. All right, so we have the ability again to dial internal numbers. We have the ability to dial internal SIP URIs, and then we have the ability to dial external SIP URIs via Webex Teams. Has nothing to do with our call manager or UCM or on-prem. We haven't deployed Expressway C or E with B2B calling or anything like that. So this is really cool. This is nice stuff here. Now, just as a caveat, to do this stuff, you probably have Cisco. You need Cisco Directory Connector. Remember, the databases with your UCM or the user databases with UCM and your Webex Teams org need to be synced up. You've got to get those somehow. Cisco Directory Connector, which I have another video on that, or importing with a CSV file. But you need those users that exist on UCM to also exist in Webex Teams as well. And that's how all this kind of magic works. But anyway, that is the deal. That's the really cool thing. What does this buy us? So if I kind of rewind a year or a year and a half before this, we had this thing called Webex Teams hybrid calling. And the concept was very cool. I'm going to be able to use my Webex Teams. My Webex Teams is going to have the same phone number as my desk phone, just like this guy. I didn't mention that, but if someone dials your number, let's go back to that 1231234 for user 1 over here. His Webex Teams is going to ring. Let's do a little ring, 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 ring. And his phone is going to ring, 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 because they have the same number. So that's important to note as well, because if you techie guys are out there and know about Jabber, Webex Teams, the phone portion is like a Jabber phone. Let's just call it that just so you can get your head around it. But okay, rewind back to Webex Teams hybrid calling. This same concept, as far as ringing both clients are ringing the phone and ringing the Webex Teams client was there. So their first iteration or their first stab at this was Cisco Webex Teams calling or hybrid calling, and the concept was sound. It was great, except when you peel back the onion and you saw the media path, every call that terminated or was sourced from Webex Teams client always went to the internet and went to the Webex Teams cloud over here, this collaboration cloud. What am I talking about? I'm just saying that, let's do red here, in the old way. I'm talking the old way here, this old hybrid calling. If user 1 would call user 2 here in this drawing, the old way, we would have a media path that would go MPLS and somehow go to the internet and then come back somehow, right? And then go to user 2. That's bad, right? QoS stuff and all this other stuff. We don't want this stuff. If in fact, let's say these two guys aren't at different branch sites, they're in two different cubes right down the hall from each other. This same scenario, you'd have this media path, this red line here, going all the way to the internet. That's bad. This takes care of that. Since UCM is taking care of your call control, when you call internally, let's do purple. When you call internally, we make this same kind of call with this newer technology, this new feature. The media path is going to go like that. We want that. That's what we've always had in the past, and we want that. So I think that's it. I hope you get the concept here. Let's go take a look at some other things. Okay, let's take a look at the deployment guide for this new feature, this feature that's in preview. So we have this preview release disclaimer. It is 6/12/2019, so I'm not sure when this is going GA, but let's dig in a little bit deeper and peel back the onion. Let's look at a couple things here. Here are the updates. In April, they added the preview release disclaimer. And I want to point your attention right over here because there's some good information right over here. So you might ask, how does this work? How does this connect up to UCM? Well, they give it away right here. Okay, what they're using is the CSF. For you techie junkies out there, you know the client services framework is similar to Jabber. That's what we build in UCM for Jabber. So they've taken that client services framework and plugged it right in to the Webex Teams client. That's good because there's nothing inside UCM. There's no updates or cop files or anything you have to do in there. It's really old hat. Build CSF devices, and then your Webex Teams is going to connect up to that CSF device. We've been doing that for years, so that's a good thing. Nothing new. We know how to do this, and here are the features. So here are the calling features that are available in preview, and they're pretty well thought out here. You can make a call, of course, you can answer a call, you can mute end call, obviously. On-call presence, that's kind of neat. I'll show you that in the demos. And DTMF input, so we can call IVRs, right, and put DTMF to, one for sales, two for marketing, things like that. We have some mid-call features like hold and resume. This is very neat. I kind of happen upon this. If you have hold and resume and you have a desk phone that also belongs to that user, you know that you can move a call from one client to another client. In other words, if you were using Jabber and you put the Jabber on your PC and you put that on hold because maybe you were getting some bad voice quality or something like that and you wanted to pick up on your desk phone that's a purpose-built high fidelity desk phone, you could do that. You can do that here as well. So you can put it on hold on your Webex client and go to your desk and pick up your phone or put your speakerphone on. That's a great feature. You can have multiple calls. You can screen share. So just like Jabber, when you're in a call between two end users or two inside org users, you can share your screen because you're in Webex Teams and the little screen share thing comes on there. So you're just calling from one to another. In fact, if you call Webex Teams to a desk phone that has video, you get video, you could screen share. Now, not a lot of real estate to share your desktop screen to a small 8800 phone or something like that, but it can be done and it does work. And then you have desk phone control. This is really cool. You can control your phone. What that means is I can click to call somebody and then I can pick to control my phone, make my phone call it, use my phone for that. And that way I don't move my hands from my normal workflow of whatever I'm doing on my PC or Mac. And then we have MRA. That's great right there. Since they used a client services framework, I guess they already built MRA in that. And when they took that little piece of code, let's say, and I'm not a developer, but that took this piece of code and put it in WebEx Teams, voila, they could use MRA too. And we have service discovery, obviously, if we have MRA, and we got single sign-on. Okay, the next section we have here is desk phone control. Desk phone control is just like in Jabber. It's controlling your phone with your WebEx Teams application. So there's a little pop-up here, and this is the pop-up where the proximity button is. Let me show you just real quick. Let's hop over and let's go to Anson here. And if we go here, home, you can see this connect to device here. That was our proximity thing before. But if we go there, we can see that we have two phones that are associated with the Anson user. This is the Anson user. I haven't told you that yet, but here's the Anson user. And so that's how they connect, just like Jabber. They're exactly like Jabber. And then here are nearby devices, proximity devices. So I just wanted to show you that real quick, just so you know what that looks like. Back over here to deployment guide. Okay, call experience. This is interesting here. The call experience with calling in WebEx Teams, this particular table, table 2 here, does a comparison. And the comparison is on one side over here, this side over here is when you make these types of calls right here, it's going to use your CUCM. Okay? In contrast to if you, and I don't know, they kind of put that kind of weird, but just the two headings here, let's say on the left is WebEx Teams using Call Manager or UCM, and on the right is calls going through the WebEx Teams. Okay, that dual registration thing. So this is all the calls that go through WebEx Teams. So let's just take a look at, one or two here real quick. If you look at the first one, it's calls initiated directly from a one-to-one space or from a contact card in WebEx Teams. Okay, so from a contact card or one-to-one space, we're going to use UCM to make that call. Okay, we'll see this in the demo. On the right-hand side, let's take a look at this one. Ad hoc meetings from a group space in WebEx Teams. So immediately you kind of get the idea here. If I'm in a one-to-one space or I look up a contact or I click on their contact card and I click call, it's going to use UCM. If I'm in a space, a meeting, team space, or something like that, where a group space, remember, any more than two people, then is a group space. Okay, it's not a one-to-one space. So if it's a group space, more than two people, that is going to use WebEx Teams. In other words, you can say it this way. If I'm going to conference, if I'm going to call multiple people, have a meeting or something inside Teams, it's going to use the call control in WebEx Teams and not in your UCM. Okay, and there's several other iterations, depending on what you click and things like that. We'll look at those in the demos, but those two are kind of the main topics there to kind of get in your brain which one's going to use which one. Let's take a look at this next. This next thing talks about if you're paired. Okay, so if your particular laptop, let's say, we're talking about desktops here, if your laptop is paired to a device. In other words, I don't want to go into the demos, but it's just better to show you. if I connect up to a device like this device right here, I'm connected to a room kit in this scenario. And that's all bets are off there because I'm using that thing as my call control. That thing, in this case, the Anson's office, the room kit is registered to the cloud. So obviously, if I'm calling somebody, it's going to use that thing, and that thing knows nothing about UCM on-prem or UCAS, so it's going to use the call control in the Cisco Teams Collaboration Cloud. Okay, fair enough. Hopefully that's crystal clear. And what they're saying here is, if you try and do this, it's going to tell you, hey, you need to disconnect if you want to use UCM. Okay, and there's a few other flows here, topics here you can review for yourself. As long as you get that basic concept, you can kind of go through this and say, okay, this is going to use this one and this is going to use this call control. Here we are in the Webex Control Hub, and I want to show you exactly where you set this up from an administrator standpoint. We'd go over to settings, and if you come down here, there's this new thing called calling behavior right here. Okay, and we have several options there. You can see the Webex calling Spark call or hybrid services selected. That's because I had and I still have hybrid services on this particular organization. Now, this is a global setting. Okay, you can go set individual users, and let's go take a look at that because this is the one we want. Now, if we were just doing everybody in Webex or this new feature calling in Webex Teams UCM, then we would go ahead and choose this. But let's go over and look at the individuals that I've set up and the ones that we're going to be doing demos with. This is Anson Garcia right here, and if we go look at that particular user and we come down all the way down here, you see, let me show you first. Call services, hybrid services is off. So this has nothing to do with hybrid services. In fact, they go through in a deployment guide and say, make sure you don't have this on. And funny things will happen if you have this on because that is also deploys this similar feature. It's the old way. Remember that way that I taught you that the media path is just terrible. But so we want to make sure that the call services is off. And if we come down here, we have this call behavior now, this calling behavior. And then there you can see in this particular user, I can choose specifically what I want this particular user to have. And I have calling in Webex Teams UCM. Okay, and we also have that for Jessica over here. You can see hybrid off, calling behavior, boom. Okay, so let's go do some demos. Okay, here we are at Anson's. So we have Anson here. I'm remote desktoped into these. So if I click on this one, I'm on Anson's desktop. And then here is Jessica's Mac here. Let's get logged in there. Let's go over to Anson real quick and remember what it said in the calling scenarios. If we search for a person, so let me search for Jessica. There she is. And I can either hover over her and get her contact card. If I do it this way, we're going to use CUCM for our call control. Okay, so let's take a look. We call that. It starts calling. If we go over to Jessica, she's receiving a call. If I answer that call right there, and we'll go ahead and hang that up real quick, see the back of my head there, that used Unified Communication Manager. Now, I tested this and I made certain, did some Wireshark traces to make sure all my UDP stuff was going to Call Manager. So it is truly, in fact, working the way it should work. And also, if I called a PSTN call, in fact, I'll show you that kind of call. Now, I'm across MRA. And if you know anything, hopefully I'm not geeking out on you here, but if you know anything about MRA, all calls with through MRA is going to go through the expressway E. Okay, for you other guys, just think of this as the call manager IP address. So here's my local IP address. There is my call manager address, or in this case, Expressway E address, because I'm using MRA in this case. And you can see that I did this trace. And when I called Jessica and when I called the PSTN, and they both went to the same spot, my call manager, eventually getting to my call manager and going to the SIP trunk, all right, or going to call manager and then going to Jessica, call control, and things like that. So just to let you guys, you geeky guys, take a look at, that's where the media was going. Okay, definitely not going to the collaboration cloud or anything like that. However, let's go back. If I would make a call, remember they said if you make a call in a group space or a team space, then that's different. It's going to use the collaboration cloud. Okay, so again, let's do one more here. If I call a number, here's a number here, and I can call just a number, and I'll go ahead and click call there. You can see that's calling my mobile phone. You can hear it ringing over here on the side, so that's indeed using my call manager and my SIP trunks. Okay, we'll hang that up. And then let's go over to a team. All right, let's go over to, I got a demo team in here. Anson Demo Lab. Okay, in this general space right here, you can see we have a few members in here. We have Jessica and Patrice in here. Now, you see this says meet. If I click that, that has nothing to do with my call manager. All right, but it's transparent to me. Okay, let's go over to Jessica. You can see Jessica is getting a join button over here. She can click that and she can join, and there we are. And now we're using the Webex Team Collaboration Cloud to do our calling. All right, let's hang that up. And when I did these traces, they were indeed going to the collaboration cloud, the Webex Teams Collaboration Cloud, and not my local call manager, or in my case, MRA, since I'm across MRA. So you are seeing I'm actually testing for you the MRA capabilities for the Webex Teams client using the Webex Teams calling UCM. So it indeed works. It works great. My mid-call features work and things like that. Again, it's in feature preview. And I have had one or two things kind of weird happen. It could be my setup, but sometimes my phone on one of my users got deregistered. Okay, and let me show you one other thing. So when you go into that calling behavior in Webex Control Hub that we saw earlier, and you turn on a user for this particular feature, what's going to happen is if you go to home and you go to your settings here, let's go to Anson's settings. You get this guy. So all of a sudden, in a few minutes, I got this thing popped up right here, and I was able to put in my username and password. This is my CUCM credentials. Now, they're the same in my case because I have single sign-on, but regardless, if you had different username passwords, different databases, you would put your username and password in here, and then it would say you're signed in if everything goes right, and it would say you're signed out if not. Also, you get a little icon right in here. In fact, let me show you that icon. Let's exit, let's sign out, and let's sign in. And what's going to happen here is we're going to get connected to the collaboration cloud, Webex Teams, and then it's going to connect up the phone portion, right? The little soft phone guy. It's going to connect up to that call manager. All right. My single sign-on stuff with Office 365. Okay, see right down here? It's trying to connect to UCM right now. So right now, in my case, it's going through the MRA stuff, and boom. Once that goes away, that means everything's good. And I can go to my phone over here, and I can dial a PSTN number. Okay? So that is it. That's the demo. That is the capabilities of Webex Teams calling using unified call manager. So I hope this has been informative for you, and thank you for watching.